Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 28 of my YouTube video series. And today we're going to talk about the cooling measures that were imposed on the Singapore property market on the 27th of September. And as per usual, recently Singapore government, if they do any cooling measure, they'll do it late at night before you have a chance to do anything, and it'll be effective immediately the next day. So it's like, you can't do any last minute changes or stuff like that. It's quite difficult to get through because this one was announced like 9 something p.m. So yeah, it's too late for most people to try and do any last minute things to get away, right? But um yeah, so let's start this video as per usual with a bit of introduction of myself.
Director of Outbound Marketing at Ryan.
Speak in Iskandar, Malaysia. So my name is Ryan. Nama saya Ryan. Saya dari Malaysia.
6,000 incoming supply in Johor. This is
I'm writing thank you for today's presentation on Iskandar, Malaysia. So my name is Ryan Khoo, and I'm a property investor. I'm a property agent in Singapore as well. In Malaysia, Singapore and Malaysia. I'm a Malaysian. I've been based in Singapore since 2009. I'm quite active in real estate in both Singapore and Malaysia, especially in Iskandar. And I'm an investor first. I've made several rounds of several pots of gold through investing in real estate directly. And I've also done well as a property agent. Yes, thank you. And I've also written a lot of stuff for the media, right? As you can see, The Edge. I've also done events and stuff for Property Guru and ST Property and iProperty events throughout Malaysia and Singapore. So let's start today's topic because this is a pretty hot topic now because it's the discussion of the week. I'm probably a bit late with this video because everybody, this thing was done like maybe 4 or 5 days ago. I've only found time to do this video now. So, but I think it's important to share my thoughts on it. And of course, disclaimer here about everything I'm mentioning. Do take proper advice. Everybody's case is different from case to case basis. Okay, so I find that this slide is the best when it comes to explain the cooling measures. Let's go through them first in detail what they are. And this slide is of course from the Today with sources from HDB, MND, and MES. So the first one, right, is the tightening of loan limits. So basically, government is saying if you're going to borrow money to buy real estate, right, they're going to use a slightly higher interest rate to calculate your affordability, right? So today, for HDB, I think they're using 2.6%. It has been raised to 3%. And for private property, it's a 3.5. They have now raised it to 4%. So basically, 0.4 to 0.5% increase depending on who you borrow from, because you borrow from HDB or borrow from bank, there's a slight difference in the rate they use. So basically what government is saying, it doesn't mean that your actual interest rate that they charge you is higher. Yeah, the actual interest rate still differs, right? It's determined by the bank or HDB, but the what they call the borrowing capacity, how much they maximum allow you to borrow, or whether they decide that you can repay every month, this is the rate that they have changed, right? So they made it a bit higher, right? And the idea is because today we are in a inflationary world, interest rates are going up everywhere. So MAS wants the banks as well as HDB to be more prudent in calculating how much they can lend you using on the interest rate basis, on how much interest rate they should calculate when they lend you money. Okay, so it's been raised a little bit, right? Anywhere from 0.4 to 0.5% depending on where you borrow from. Okay, so that's number one. Okay, number two is if you take a HDB loan from HDB, that means you're buying HDB from HDB and you take a HDB loan, right? The loan to value, which is how much the HDB can lend to you, has been reduced from 85 to 80%, right? So it used to be you can only put 15% down payment, 15, be it cash or CPF combined. Now you have to put up 20%, right? Cash or CPF combined. So they're lowered. So they're trying to reduce your risk in terms of how much you can borrow from HDB. If you borrow from a bank, there's no difference, right? This is only if you borrow from HDB. A lot of people borrow from HDB because HDB can finance higher, right? But in this case, they've reduced the financing amount a little bit, right? To by 5% to 80%, right? And the third item, right, which is probably the third cooling measure, is probably the one that most people did not expect to happen, right? Interest rates, I mean, is going up and reduce LTV. I mean, that's to be expected, right? Government is I mean, that was something to be expected to try and cool down HDB market. But the third one was a measure that no one really thought about, which is basically, if you're a private property owner and you sold your private property to buy HDB, a resale HDB, you now have to wait 15 months before you can buy. Okay, I repeat, if you sold your private property and you want to buy your HDB, resale HDB, right, you now have to wait 15 months before you can buy that HDB resale flat. So this is something shocking a little bit, right? And a lot of owners who have sold their condo recently wanted to buy resale HDB to downgrade or right size to a resale HDB, they'll find, oh, jialat, this suddenly hits them and they're not able to buy and you have to rent or move to somewhere else, family home or something, right? Because they cannot buy the HDB resale, need to wait 15 months. Okay, there is a disclaimer, there is a exclusion. That means if you are a senior age 55 and above, right, you are excluded, you can. But anyone younger than 55, jialat, you have to wait 15 months. So this is basically the 3 cooling measures. Now, first glance, what's your impression? First glance. First glance, it's not as it's not a hard hitting cooling measure, right? There are nothing really heavy here in terms of cooling measures. Of course, if you are in the third category, this third cooling measure, you probably suffer a little bit lah. But by and large, the cooling measures are fairly mild compared to previous cooling measures in the history of Singapore's property market, right? So these cooling measures are not very strong. But basically, the idea I think here is they are trying to control the HDB prices, right? Because I think what happens now is you can see these cooling measures hit HDB more than they hit private. The private impact is quite minimal. I will show you later. But this one hit HDB more than private. And I think in the media recently, you've seen a lot of $1 million flats. So the idea with this is they try and reduce the number of $1 million flats, because a lot of the $1 million flats happen because some private property owners sold their condo, made a few $100,000, and they use that to buy the HDB. And that's why they can hit prices like 1 million. They buy normally this HDB they hit 1 million are quite expensive HDB lah. I mean quite big HDB. They are normally like jumbo or 2 units, or pretty premium kind of HDB lah. Right? The typical HDB will not hit 1 million, right? But these are quite unique HDB. So the private condo owner sell his condo, got some cash, and use that cash to buy the HDB lah. So government is trying to reduce this, right? And of course, if you look at the HDB price index in the past few quarters, it have been like a straight line going up there, right? So I think government say, wow, this is not sustainable, right? As a chart, right? This is not a good chart to see that, right? The HDB prices go up too much. HDB are meant to be affordable. So these cooling measures hit HDB more, or try to moderate the HDB demand a little bit. Now let me show you the impact of these 3 cooling measures right now. This one is if you take loan from HDB, right? So there are 2 things imputed here, right? One is the interest rate is now a bit higher when they used to calculate your amount to borrow. And 2 is the LTV is lower. How much you can borrow is also lower. So you can see before 30th September and after 30th September, assuming you buy a 600,000 4-room resale, right? The LTV has changed, right? Interest rate has changed a little bit. Now it's 3% instead of 2.6% earlier, right? And now you come out more cash. So if you see more cash or CPF, so you see your remaining 20%, now it's 120,000. Previously, you may only require 90. So the differential is about 30,000, right, for a 600,000 property. Okay, I repeat. So if you're buying a 600,000 HDB, the differential is around $30,000, right? Actually, depending on the price of the HDB you buy, the impact to you is anywhere between 10 to 30,000. Then I mean, max also 40,000, 40, 50,000. Even 40, 50,000 is quite a lot, right? That means you're buying quite a big HDB, right? The impact to you is fairly small. It's not like you're going to lose 100,000 or 200. Not say lose, it's not like the differential is 100,000 or more. The differential in these cases, for most cases of HDB buyer, should be fairly small. I think the average should be anywhere between 20 to 40,000 max, right? Impact to you, CPF or cash extra that you will need. Anyhow, like I said, it's not a price difference. It's just the amount of CPF or cash that you will need to use, that you need to top up. So you can see it's about 20, 50,000 or 20 to 30,000, sorry, CPF cash that you need to make a difference. So, and I believe a lot of buyers will have this $20,000, $30,000, right? Unless you are the type that you are buying your HDB on a very tight budget. That means your max, you max out your loan, you max out your CPF, right? Then you are buying on that budget. Then maybe you're probably affected by this. You may have to reduce your budget like again this 20-30,000, right, or 50,000, right. But if you still have spare CPF or you're not taking maximum loan, you should be fine, right? You should have enough money in your reserve to still cover the difference, because the difference is not very, very big. The impact of the first two cooling measures, right? As I mentioned earlier, in a sense, this 80%, this 5% LTV differential is sort of offset by the interest rate here. So that's why you don't feel the impact so big. I mean, there's a bit of math behind it. Maybe I don't want to go through it. It's a bit too technical, but in a sense, this first cooling measure, the second cooling measure sort of offset each other in terms of affordability. I mean, you still have to come out some cash in the end, right? But it's not as much as you think. That's what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so that's why I said the first two cooling measure, no big deal, only affects people who are really stretch their budget to buy. Then maybe you're affected. You may have to lower your budget a little bit. But otherwise, in most cases, you're talking about 20, 30,000, 50, 40,000 differential. Right? If you take a loan, if you're talking about private property, right? How does this affect private property buyer? So if I'm buying a condo, last time bank used 3.5%, now bank will use 4% to calculate my affordability. And in this case, you will see that depending on the quantum, the loan quantum that you're taking, you affect your purchase price by about, again, between 100 to 300,000. Depends how much you're buying, how much loan you're taking, right? But you can see the impact to your loan purchase price also not, to your loan amount also not very, to your property price, sorry, that you can buy, also not very big, 100,000 to 200, 300,000 max, right? This 300,000 was assuming you buy 4 million property, which is quite on a rare side. So in most cases, people are buying property between 1.6 to say 2.4 million, right? The differential to you is about 100 to 150,000, right? And I think if you buy new launch also today, that's not such a big deal. I mean, maybe you have to go lower floor a bit, or maybe change your stack, right? But it doesn't affect you very much if you're buying private condo, right? It may affect you a bit, but will not affect you very, very badly. It's a fairly minor hit for buying private condo. Okay, so the differential is not big in this sense. Now, if you look at, so overall, if I'm trying to say for like I mentioned earlier, it hits HDB harder, right? So like I said, I did some own math for myself. If you're using 400,000 loan, assuming you need to keep within the MSR, your borrowing ratio, right, which is now using 3% instead of 2.6%, you can only borrow 380,000 instead, which is a 20,000 difference. And you may or may not have the cash to come out this. A lot of people will do, but like I said, if you're stretching, you may not, but your budget will drop a little bit, right? If you're buying HDB, again, your borrowing amount also drop, right? 500K at 80% LTV, you drop, like I said, 20-30,000 difference is quite common for most HDB sizes, 3-room, 4-room flat. You're looking at that kind of cash. You can use cash or CPF to top up this difference, right? It's still your own money at the end of the day, so it's not that bad. Yeah, but yeah. So the idea is with this cooling measure, HDB hopes to reduce the number of buyers, right? Who are buying, not say reduce the number of buyers, reduce the price push, right? By controlling their budget a bit, HDB is trying to control that prices don't move up so fast, right? Or with a reduced budget or more reasonable budget, make buyers don't stretch their purchase too much, right? Now the last one, the third cooling measure is the one that's probably the most interesting to discuss, right? Again, because most people didn't didn't expect this cooling measure to come out. So which is a 15-month wait out period for private residential owners if they want to buy a resale HDB. So as objective here, you can see that there's one exclusion, as I mentioned earlier, 55 years and above seniors allowed. They are okay, they're excluded, but everyone else, they'll be affected, right? So today is quite a common trend where, before this cooling measure, where people make money on their condo. They will bought their condo as an investment, maybe stay in it a couple of years to clear the SSD, right? Then once the condo make money, right, they sell the condo, take the profit to buy a resale HDB, and with the profit they can maybe buy the resale HDB cash, or they buy the resale HDB with a very minor financing, or they can buy a very nice HDB, and this probably attributed to some of the $1 million HDB that you see lah, because they use the profit from the condo sale to buy the HDB. So it's very typical. Today rule is if you sell your if you buy a HDB, a resale HDB, you must sell the condo within 6 months, or vice versa. You can also sell the condo first and then you can buy a resale HDB. Same thing, right? So the idea, so this is very common thing today. But now government say no more, right? You have this 6 months thing no more already. You have to wait 15 months before you can buy your private condo, before you can buy your resale HDB, right? And that hits that segment of owners or people quite strong, right? Imagine you sold your HDB, your private condo a few months ago, and now you're scouting for HDB, resale HDB to buy. Jialat, you cannot buy now. You have to wait 15 months, right? And there are a lot of people who are, I mean, I will say a lot. There's a significant bunch of people who are caught in this trap now, or this problem now. I'm sure over the past few days, a lot of calls have been made by these type owners. Or how they got no how, they have to rent, no? They have to rent or find their brother house or father house to go stay first, right? Because they cannot buy resale HDB, they have to wait for 15 months. So HDB is trying to government is trying to control, remove these buyers out of the market at least for the next 15 months, right? And yeah, so but you notice that again, many people are not affected. The people who are not affected, of course, first time buyers, right? They are fine. They are not affected by this cooling measure. If you sell HDB to buy HDB, also you are fine, right? That's okay. Government don't want to penalize you. So government want to penalize the private property owners who are trying to buy resale HDB, who use their profit to buy HDB and end up pushing up the HDB price. So government trying to punish or control those guys, right? So, and of course, seniors, which I mentioned, are excluded because they are seniors were the right size, which is fine. So government feel that there's a valid reason. I will allow you to right size. But anyone else 55 years and below, we don't want you to spoil the HDB market by taking all your private property profits and dumping it into the HDB market. So that's why, and therefore reduce all these what do you call $1 million flats and try to control, taper off the HDB prices a little bit. So that's basically the review of the cooling measures today. So what's my 5 cent opinion? I mean, it's fairly mild. I don't think the property market will be will be very much affected by this. I mean, the interest rates calibration and the LTV calibrations, because like I said, we're in inflationary environment. Government want to reduce you from taking debt, want to make sure the banks are using and HDB is using correct interest rate, because interest rates have changed quite a fair bit. So that one is a normal adjustment. And as I mentioned, the impact to the prices are actually not very big. So it's also questionable whether that's a real cooling measure or not. It's a bit like it's a minor cooling measure, a bit of cold water, right? The bigger one, as I mentioned, the third one, I think that's the government suddenly thought of something that they thought they can use that to control the private property profits from re-entering HDB market. So like I said, it hits the HDB market stronger. It may force certain transactions. Will prices of HDB go down? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, hard to say. I at first glance is supposed to control HDB prices. So I guess we'll probably see number of transactions fall first, right? I don't think prices will fall immediately, right? But I think $1 million flats definitely will reduce, because normally $1 million flats come from this kind of scenario earlier. But since this kind of scenario is now banned, so you may not see $1 million flats. So I guess the typical 3-room flat, 4-room flat will not be affected so much, right? We'll have to see. It's difficult to say. And I think for private property market, there's no real impact, right? Life goes on for private property market. So as far as cooling measure goes, this one's quite a mild one. But anyhow, in another way to look at it, some people may say this is signaling that government is watching you, watching us, all right? And is ready to step in to cool things further, and it sort of signals that prices may have to turn a little bit. I don't know. I mean, from a chart perspective, Singapore property prices have been on a very strong run. I mean, I don't know whether it's sustainable. It's probably not so sustainable for prices to keep moving up like that, whether HDB or private, but that's where we are. And actually, there are very strong fundamental reasons why prices are moving like that. Maybe a recession coming in end of this year, early next year will turn this a little bit. So government also maybe on a bit of a wait and see mode. But I mean, this is a signal to try and control HDB prices first, because of course there have been a lot of grumbles on the ground that HDB prices should not move up so much so fast. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I had to share today, please like, share, subscribe on my YouTube here, and can get more videos from me in the future. We talk about lots of topics in Malaysia, Singapore, and thank you very much.